What if I told you that Russia's first crowned tsar was both a visionary state builder and a ruler consumed by terror? For years, history has struggled to reconcile these two truths, often flattening Ivan IV into a single image of madness and blood. But the reality is darker and far more revealing. In the 16th century, Russia was not yet an empire. It was a fragile state emerging from centuries of Mongol domination, surrounded by enemies and torn apart by internal rivalries. Power was unstable, loyalty was conditional, violence was not an exception. It was the language of survival. Into this world rose Ivan IV, later remembered as Ivan the Terrible. His reign reshaped Russia permanently. Laws were centralized, territory expanded, authority became absolute. Yet these achievements were forged alongside purges, mass executions, and a culture of fear that reached into every level of society. Ivan's story still matters because it exposes how unchecked power transforms insecurity into cruelty, and how fear, once unleashed as a tool of control, can consume even the one who wields it. His reign did not collapse in a single moment. It unraveled slowly, decision by decision, until terror itself became the state.
Ivan IV was born in 1530, heir to the Grand Principality of Moscow. His father, Vasily III, died when Ivan was only 3 years old, leaving the throne to a child surrounded by ambitious nobles. His mother, Elena Glinskaya, ruled as regent, but her sudden death, likely by poisoning, left Ivan orphaned and vulnerable at the age of 8. Power quickly shifted to rival boyar families who fought openly for control. Ivan grew up in the Kremlin, neglected, humiliated, and exposed to violence at court. Contemporary accounts describe him witnessing beatings, executions, and constant intrigue. Authority was arbitrary, trust was dangerous. These formative years shaped Ivan deeply. He developed a profound resentment toward the nobility and an obsession with absolute control. When he came of age, he did not seek compromise, he sought domination. In 1547, Ivan crowned himself Tsar of all Russia, the first ruler to claim that title. It was a deliberate break from the past, signaling divine authority and centralized power. But beneath the ceremony lay unresolved trauma, suspicion, and rage, quietly waiting for a moment to surface. For the first decade of his reign, Ivan ruled with relative restraint. He introduced legal reforms, strengthened central administration, and expanded Russian territory through military campaigns. Advisors helped govern, and order appeared to be emerging from chaos. Then everything changed. In 1560, Ivan's wife, Anastasia Romanovna, died suddenly. Ivan was convinced she had been poisoned by boyars. Whether true or not, her death shattered his remaining trust. His behavior shifted. Paranoia replaced reform. In 1565, Ivan made a radical decision. He divided Russia into two parts, creating the Oprichnina, territory under his personal rule, enforced by a private army loyal only to him. The Oprichniki wore black, rode black horses, and carried symbols of death and cleansing. This was no temporary measure. It was a state within a state, built on terror. Property was seized, nobles were accused without trial, entire families disappeared overnight. Ivan believed he was purging treason. In reality, he was dismantling all opposition through fear. From this point forward, the course of his reign could no longer be reversed.
The Oprichnina unleashed violence on an unprecedented scale. Accusations required no evidence. Confessions were extracted through torture. Executions became public rituals designed to intimidate the population. The most infamous episode came in 1570, when Ivan suspected the city of Novgorod of plotting treason. He personally led his forces there. For weeks, the city was subjected to mass executions. Clergy, merchants, women, and children were killed. Thousands died. Contemporary estimates vary, but the devastation was undeniable. Fear became institutionalized. Nobles obeyed not out of loyalty, but survival. Governance suffered as experienced administrators were eliminated. Military effectiveness declined. The economy weakened. Ivan's personal behavior grew increasingly erratic. He isolated himself, trusted no one, and oscillated between religious devotion and extreme cruelty. In 1581, during a violent argument, Ivan struck his own son and heir, killing him. The act was irreversible, both personally and politically. The ruler who sought absolute control had destroyed the future of his own dynasty.
Ivan the Terrible died in 1584, leaving behind a fractured state. His remaining son was weak and incapable of ruling effectively. Within years, Russia descended into the time of troubles, a period marked by famine, foreign invasion, and civil war. The human cost of Ivan's reign was immense. Entire noble families were eradicated. Cities were depopulated. Trust between ruler and society was shattered. Fear had preserved authority, but it had also hollowed out the state. Later generations struggled to interpret Ivan's legacy. Some portrayed him as a necessary tyrant who strengthened Russia. Others emphasized his brutality and psychological instability. Official histories often softened the terror, focusing instead on territorial expansion. But the damage was lasting. Ivan's model of absolute rule set a precedent, one where dissent equaled treason, and obedience was enforced through violence. The machinery of repression he built did not disappear with him. It became part of the Russian state's memory. What survived was not just fear, but silence.
Ivan the Terrible was not simply a mad tyrant, nor a misunderstood reformer. He was a ruler shaped by fear, who chose to govern through fear, and was ultimately destroyed by it. His reign reveals how insecurity, when paired with absolute power, can transform governance into persecution. He believed terror would guarantee loyalty. Instead, it ensured isolation. The silence he imposed concealed collapse rather than preventing it. By eliminating opposition, he eliminated stability. Ivan's story forces a confrontation with uncomfortable truths about power and human nature. Fear can compel obedience, but it cannot build trust. Violence can enforce order, but it corrodes legitimacy. Silence may appear peaceful, but it often hides devastation. Long after his death, Ivan's shadow remained, not as legend alone, but as a warning etched into history. When authority is sustained by terror, it does not end in control, but in ruin.